Okay, so with that, we're here to answer some questions. Mike is up here also, so we'll answer. Steve, please go ahead.
Grapple with when and how to open their states. What's the best advice from you on what they should do? How quickly?
Well, we
how
want them to do
slowly?
it. We recommend that they do it as quickly as possible, but safely. We want everyone to be safe. And I think you're seeing that. You're seeing a lot of governors get out and they want to open it up. Many are thinking about their school system. There's not a long way to go in the school system right now for this season, for this year. But I think you'll see a lot of schools open up, even if it's for a very short period of time. I think it would be a good thing because as you see in terms of what this vicious virus goes after, young people seem to do very well. Young people seem to do very well. So I know that there are some governors that aren't necessarily ready to open up their states, but they may be ready to open up their school systems. We'll see, but that's their choice. But the word is safety, okay? Rapid, but safety. Yeah, please. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for you regarding one of the members of your coronavirus task force, and that's Secretary of HHS, Alex Azar.
Yeah.
On January the 28th, he was in the briefing room, and in the briefing room, he told reporters that for the individual American, the virus should not be an impact on their day-to-day life. 3 months later, more than 55,000 of our fellow Americans have now lost their lives. Mr. President, why is he still your top health advisor? Why is he still serving as the HHS secretary?
Well, I think it's a very unfair question because you have many great professionals. Some of them you have great respect for, and you have many people in the other party. You mentioned Alex Azar, but you have many people in the other party that have said the same thing and with even more confidence. So a lot of people didn't get that right. I was very fortunate, whether it was through luck or whatever, that we closed the border. We put a ban on China other than our citizens coming in. We had our citizens. You can't keep out American citizens. You know, gee, you can't come back into your country. That's a little tough to do, but we put a ban on China. That was very fortunate. But I could tell you that Nancy Pelosi was dancing in the streets in Chinatown. She wanted to go, let's go out and party. Now, that was late into February, so you don't mention that, but you could mention that. Go ahead. Any other? Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
Mr. President, he has not been in a briefing.
Yeah, please, stand up.
Since April the 3rd. Does that show confidence?
You should have no complaints, please.
Thank you, President. Yesterday, you retweeted someone who alleged that Democrats have quote, inflated the mortality rate of the coronavirus by underreporting the infection rate. Do you believe that's true, that there's some sort of conspiracy theory regarding the number of infections states are reporting?
Well, I can only say what we're doing. We're reporting very accurately. If you look at other countries are not. I mean, you can look at China, you can look at numerous countries where I don't think those are right numbers. I can only say what we're doing. It's very important to us to do very accurate reporting, and that's what we're doing. John, go ahead, please.
Retweeting that, Mr. President.
Thank you, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Charlie Spearing, Breitbart News. And a majority of polls show that Americans blame China for the spread of the coronavirus, and yet they're taking advantage of the crisis to make the world more dependent on their supply chains. How do you hold China accountable, and how do you keep our country?
Well, Charlie, there are a lot of ways you can hold them accountable. We're doing very serious investigations, as you probably know, and we are not happy with China. We are not happy with that whole situation because we believe it could have been stopped at the source. It could have been stopped quickly, and it wouldn't have spread all over the world. And we think that should have happened. So we'll let you know at the appropriate time, but we are doing serious investigations. Please go ahead.
Supply chain, sir.
Following up on Charlie's question on making China, holding them responsible, Germany's going to bill China for $130 billion to €130 billion for the damages caused by the coronavirus. Would your administration look at doing the same?
Well, we could do something much easier than that. We have ways of doing things a lot easier than that, but Germany's looking at things and we're looking at things, and we're talking about a lot more money than Germany's talking about. Yeah, please go ahead. We haven't determined the final amount yet.
Thank you, Mr. President.
It's very substantial. If you look at the world, I mean, this is worldwide damage. This is damage to the U.S., but this is damage to the world. Yeah, please.
Government suing state
It would
officials?
depend on the state. It would depend on the circumstances of the state. I mean, some states are, perhaps a little early, and some states are a little bit late. And the Attorney General, I read that and I saw that, and frankly, the Attorney General doesn't want to have rights taken away because, you know, there are some people, they're not allowed to open up a store or they're going to lose their livelihood. And by the way, that causes death also between all of the things that happen, and this has been a big study. You know, the fact that people aren't allowed to have their freedom causes a tremendous amount of problems, including death. So that's what he's talking about. Please, in the back.
Maryland and other states, Governor Larry Hogan specifically said they've seen a spike in people using disinfectant after your comments last week. I know you said they were sarcastic.
I can't imagine why. I can't imagine why. Yeah.
Take any responsibility?
No, I don't. No, I can't imagine. I can't imagine that. Yeah, go ahead, please.
President, Dr. Anthony Fauci says that we need to increase testing by double it at least, and so does the Rockefeller Foundation.
And this you can get from any other country, I think, if they're being honest. Not only do we have the most testing in the world by far, but we have by far the best testing. OAN, please go ahead.
Mr. President, thank you. As I'd like to switch gears and talk about General Flynn. There are reports circulating now that he may well be fully exonerated this week. If that were the case, is there any reason why you would not bring him back into the administration?
I will only say this. I think that General Flynn is a wonderful man. He had a wonderful career, and it was a disgrace what happened to General Flynn. Let's see what happens now. But what happened to General Flynn should never happen again in our country. What happened to other people should never happen again in our country. What happened to your President of the United States should never again be allowed to happen. Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, thank you. Today, one of your top economic advisors, he said that the U.S. is likely to experience a 20 to 30% decline in the GDP in the second quarter, the worst since the Great Depression. Do you agree with that assessment?
I don't know, but I can tell you the third and the fourth quarter in particular are going to be, I think, spectacular. We were talking about it with the executives. I think we're going to have a phenomenal third quarter. Nobody, you know, except one country can be held accountable for what happened. Nobody's blaming anybody here. We're looking at a group of people that should have stopped it at the source. But so what happens in second happens in second. What we are doing is, I think you're going to see a big rise in the third, but you're going to see an incredible fourth quarter, and you're going to have an incredible next year. I think you're going to have a recovery. Look, they were just telling me inside, and it's fact, I built the greatest economy with the help of 325 million people. I built the greatest economy in the history of the world. And one day, because of something that should have never been allowed to happen, we had to close our country, we had to close our economy. I built it. We had the best employment numbers and the best unemployment numbers for Hispanic American, for African American, for Asian American, for everybody. Best stock market numbers. And by the way, the stock market was up very substantially today. And people are seeing a lot of good things. A lot of very smart people investing in the stock market right now. It's at 24,000, approximately 24,000. And if you would have said, with the tragedy that this country had to endure and go through, with all of the death and the people that died and were so badly hurt by what happened, and you can only say God bless them, but if you would have said that our country would be in the position we're now, we're ready to move forward. We'll never forget loved ones. We'll never forget these great people that sacrificed for a reason of incompetence or something else other than incompetence, what happened at a point where they could have protected the whole world, not just us, the whole world. But we had the greatest economy ever in the history of our world, and I had to turn it off in order to get to a point where we are today. And now we're making a comeback, and I think we're going to have economically, from an economic standpoint, next year an unbelievable year. And I think that you're going to see a fantastic fourth quarter, and the third quarter will start to build. So people have stepped up to the plate. I think we're going to have a really good, I think it's going to start building. I think it's going to build fast. I think it'll be a tremendous, tremendous comeback. And you know, so I say, I built the greatest economy with all of the people that helped me and all of the people in this country. We built the greatest economy the world has ever seen, and we're going to do it again. And it's not going to be that long. Okay. Yes, please, go ahead.
Mr. President, opening up the country, how long will you keep up the travel restrictions for Europe?
Well, we're looking at that, and it depends on how long it's taking Europe to heal. Italy is starting to make a comeback. I'm very happy to see that with my friend, the Prime Minister. It's tragic what went on in Italy and Spain and France and Germany, frankly, and every country over there. It's tragic. But we'll be looking at what's happening in Europe, and certainly we want to do that, and they want to do it too. They want to do it very badly. Yeah?
Do you have any update on Kim Jong-un's health? Have you gotten any update on Kim Jong-un's health? Has he responded to your letter from March?
On Kim Jong-un? I can't tell you exactly. Yes, I do have a very good idea, but I can't talk about it now. I just wish him well. I've had a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un. If I weren't president, you'd be in war. You would have been in war with Korea. You would have been in war with North Korea if I wasn't president. That I can tell you. He expected that. That I can tell you. I hope he's fine. I do know how he's doing, relatively speaking. We will see. You'll probably be hearing in the not too distant future. All right, one or two more. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, a question about the 2020 election.
Yeah.
Your likely Democratic opponent, Joe Biden, recently suggested that you were considering changing the date of the election, that you might try something like that. That's my first question. The second question
I never even thought of changing the date of the election. Why would I do that? November 3rd. It's a good number.
Joe Biden recently suggested that you were considering changing the date of the election, that you might try something like that. That's my first question. The second question
I never even thought of changing the date of the election. Why would I do that? November 3rd. It's a good number. No, I look forward to that election, and
开展空中巡查的这个目的，主要是这个是防御的一个重要手段之一。再一个就是对一些监控死角以外的一些区域的进行一个弥补。
Back to China Uncensored, I'm Chris Chappell. As if dissidents in China didn't have enough to be worried about, China already had a massive surveillance system. But with the spread of the coronavirus, that system has been pushed into overdrive. Joining me today to discuss this is Greg Barbaccia, an expert in counterintelligence and corporate espionage. He's also a former intelligence sergeant in the US Army. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So China has a kind of digital Orwellian society that's never been seen before. How has this system been used during the coronavirus outbreak?
So what China's doing and what the CCP is doing is they're expanding this already staggering amount of information they collect on their citizens to levels that are truly Orwellian that you wouldn't even believe were possible before.
Mm-hmm. So how is this kind of tracking different from what the Communist Party was already doing?
So what they were already doing was this kind of blanket surveillance, sucking up everything. They're tracking locations of phones, but now what they're doing is they're analyzing that data in a bit of a different way, kind of seeing who's in what kind of proximity to who else. They're also tracking some things I don't think they've been doing in earnest before. Things like temperature readings when people travel. They're looking more closely at where people have traveled. I'm also imagining they're looking at search terms people are using for symptoms of the disease.
Well, so has it been effective at stopping the spread of the coronavirus?
Yeah, so that's a tough one because the Chinese government is arguably the best in modern times at controlling what type of information is coming out of the Great Firewall. So they're saying the numbers are relatively low, and they're pretending they're doing a great job of containing it. But a lot of what we're seeing leaking doesn't make sense. You're seeing a lot of cell phone subscriptions disappear seemingly overnight. These leaked pictures of a lot of urns. So the numbers certainly don't jive with what the Communist Party is giving to the world.
Well, so how else might this surveillance system be used by the Communist Party after the coronavirus is over?
Yeah, so one interesting thing they're doing is they're kind of showing their hand a little more. Everybody knows, and their citizens are the same, that they're collecting all the information. But this quarantine is forcing them to act on it a lot faster, which is having them show their hand to their technical capabilities. So a lot of what happens when you do these type of dragnet technical operations is other data that isn't related to COVID gets picked up. So I wouldn't be surprised. A good example would be there's a couple of people who are known for subversive activities against the government, and they've been hanging out in the same place, or let's say cohabitating. When that might have not been obvious to the Communist Party before, they're probably going to trip over this type of information and then use it to target people for political means as well.
So why is this so important for the regime?
This is important because the only way they could project their power on the international scene is to show that they are able to maintain security of their population. They are able to make their population happy and manufacture all these goods for the whole world. So when they start losing control of that, it makes them look terrible on the international stage. And it hurts the ability they have to control their population. If the citizenry starts to doubt the Chinese Communist Party's ability to protect them, all of a sudden they're going to start thinking, why are we risking so much and working so hard for this? What we're seeing that is especially interested is the medical and scientific community. When you look at how some of the COVID-19 whistleblowers were discredited and very literally let die, you start realizing that the CCP is not interested in true scientific outcomes. They're only interested in supporting outcomes when they're congruent with the party information lines.
So you think this new surveillance system is really a result of the party being even more worried about maintaining its grip on power?
Absolutely. I think they are getting a little bit desperate. They wouldn't be using things. We're seeing facial recognition being used to track people who aren't wearing masks. Something else is very interesting, reports about integrating the thermal imaging and the facial recognition to kind of see who's got a fever. That's interesting technology. It's commodity technology that exists. But the fact that the CCP is letting it get out to all of their citizens at once that they're using it is interesting. They seem to be panicking a little, and they're willing to let a little bit more of what they have behind the cloak kind of show.
So what ramifications might this have?
I think if there was ever a time for the kind of younger college-educated people to get the wool removed from their eyes and see that this party is only concerned with existing in perpetuity. It doesn't really care about the health of the nation and the citizens. They're watching their friends and family die and not be able to get medical care. I think this is coupled with the protests we've been seeing in Hong Kong and other places. Now's an interesting time that some sort of uprising could take place. China's also not in a position now to squash something like they were during Tiananmen Square, for example. The international community is just not in a place where they would stand for that.